In the legal world, there is a combination of forces that feed a corrupt and suffocating legal system for attorneys. Law schools, law professionals, judges, and even the firms themselves for whom you work create a system, a matrix, if you will, that is nothing like what you thought when you passed the bar exam. The purpose of this podcast is to help you escape this legal matrix, leading you out of the proverbial desert to be free of the bondage of the matrix. Hosted by Bryce D. Nyer, attorney at law with over 30 years experience in the trenches of civil and criminal litigation at the state, federal, and international levels. He's a highly accomplished and resourceful legal professional, a true master of his craft, and he's here to help you get your life back. Here's your host, Bryce D. Nyer.
Hello. This is Bryce D. Nyer coming at you live from Fayetteville, North Carolina, home of Fort Bragg, with another episode of Escape the Legal Matrix. And tonight's topic, one breath away from death. Woohoo! Bryce, that's so Debbie Downer to talk about. Well, maybe, but we're going to talk about it anyway. We're going to talk about it. One breath away from death. So listen up, you law students, you young lawyers, or you lawyers, period, no matter what age group you're in. Look, the people used to say, you only live once, No, you only die once. You live every day. Remember that. You only die once, but you live every day. And here's the thing. What is it you're doing with your life? What is it you really want? And the reason I'm asking this and the reason I'm talking about this subject, well, for a number of reasons. One, I've had numerous friends of mine that have died very young, some as young as in their 30s, from heart attacks or cancer or other diseases that did not know that it was their last day. And as time goes forward, for all of you, doesn't matter what age group, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, whatever. But as time moves forward, you're going to lose more and more people in your life, from family members to friends. And it's going to be painful. And this is what it's going to do eventually. It's going to make you assess your own life. It's going to make you take a deep, deep dive into everything that you believe or that you believed in. And it's going to challenge you. It's going to challenge every domain, a body, of being, of balance in business and your fulfillment. And I find it kind of funny, in a way, or ironic, is that most of the time when we're teens or when we're in our 20s, we really don't have a concept of getting older or of death. We just don't. And what happens is that we go along and we don't really consider that, hey, today could be the last day. We could be just one breath away from death. And that happens, a lot in the world. It just does. And horrible things happen to people, whether they're good people or bad people. Things happen. Tragedies happen. And in my life, the people, as I've said before in other podcasts, I've had to take 2 people off life support that I loved. It was horrible. And it was a stark reminder that tomorrow is promised to nobody. It is promised to no one. That saying, but for the grace of God go I, that's true. That's true, because you just don't know. So here's what I want to talk about. Here's what I want you to consider. What are you doing in your life right now? Are you really living? Are you really living? Or are you just walking around like this walking death? Because when you really think about death, depending on what your religious beliefs are, and for me, I believe that, there's a soul in the body, and at death, the soul separates. And I believe God exists. I believe Jesus exists. And I believe we're all going to be judged and held accountable and based on faith and works and all that. We can get into that discussion on another day. But I don't know what your religious background is. Maybe some of you don't believe anything. But there's 2 things that are certain. 2 things. You were born and you will die. Nobody is going to escape this planet alive. It just doesn't happen. And I've been having these conversations with a couple of my close friends, about life, death, marriage, divorce. You name it, the whole smorgasbord and these domains of body, of being, of balance, in business. And it really captures you, and it makes you take this deep look. It's what I call a soul purpose archaeologist. That's what you become. You start looking at yourself of everything you've done in your life, or everything that you want to do and you have not done. Because remember, yesterday's already gone, tomorrow's not here, and the only thing you have is right now, today. And this has really weighed on my mind. This has really been on my mind, because every time I see or hear somebody called me and said, hey, did you know so-and-so died? Somebody I may have grown up with, one of my family members. And a lot of them really are still in the prime of their lives. I mean, like 200 years ago, people, they didn't live very long, 30s or 40s, because they just didn't have the advancements in medicines. I mean, that's why you see in the U.S. Constitution where you have to be 35 years old to be the president, because when the Constitution was written, a 35-year-old had already lived a pretty long life. I mean, they were hunting and using weapons as like little kids, like in elementary school, to survive in the wilderness, and 250 years ago. So, 35 then is probably the equivalent of 55 or 65 now. And so most men and women had a way advanced maturity by the time they were 18, 19, 20. A totally different world, totally different concept of how you had to grow up to survive. And, as each time I hear of somebody I know or love that's died, it makes me reel back and just go, I really need to take an assessment of where I am. And when I started doing that, I began to find that, some things just aren't that damn important. They're just not. And you'll find if you really take this deep look, especially you law students who you think the end all is getting that first job and, the retainer fee and the billable hours, the blah, 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 you're going to find you're going to be in this legal matrix. This legal matrix will consume you if you allow it. And that's why I've been talking about these domains of body, being, a balance, of business and fulfillment, and opening, owning, operating, and leading your own law firm, so you have some freedom to live. Because if you get enmeshed in the legal matrix, you won't have a life. You'll be dead every day. And eventually then you'll be physically dead because you'll have a stroke or a heart attack. So you have to say now, what if I just had, like a day to live, or 10 days or 30 days or 1 year? What would you do differently? What would you do? What would you say? Who would you go see? Where would you go? Where would you travel to? And how would you change your behavior? And then it begs the question, well, why don't you do it now? And I can tell you from me personally and professionally, I am making profound changes in my life. Profound. In all of the domains, I am questioning everything. I'm seeking, the truth of where I am in body, in being, in balance, in business, and am I fulfilled? And I got to tell you something. It's just when I sit there and I answer those questions, when I really sit down and do this self-audit, there's things that are definitely going to change, like now. Because, time, when you really think about it, you live 60, 70, 80, maybe 100 years, maybe. That's not really a long time. It's not that long at all. It's really short. Life is truly short on this planet. And everybody stresses and worries and gets caught up in such stupidity and things that don't even matter. And you don't even realize that you're one breath away from death. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to think about it. But you need to. You need to. I'm not saying you have to be obsessed about it, think about it every day, but I think you need to live your life. We need to live our lives like, hey, at any point in time, we might not be here tomorrow. We might not awaken tomorrow. We may not be talking to our loved ones tomorrow. If you're married, your spouse may be a widow or a widower tomorrow. Or your family, one of your family members. Or you. I'm just saying that these things can happen. And when you start looking at it in that context, what it really makes you do, it really makes you become alive. It puts this fire inside you to live, and to be passionate and these domains of body, of being, of balance, and business to be ultimately fulfilled. And see, that's the mistake I made in my life. I worried too much about way too much stuff that really I shouldn't have worried about. Other people kind of had it down pat and didn't worry about certain things that I worried about. Some of the things I worried about when I was young in my 20s or in college, they were just stupid. They were dumb. They didn't matter. But back then I thought, oh my God, it's like the Goliath, it's the big lion in the room. And it wasn't. And now I just approach everything in a totally different manner now, especially within the last 90 days. I mean, a couple of years ago in 2018, when I became a member of Wake Up Warrior, which makes you live and operate in truth, and you got to stop lying, tell the truth, do the work. I really, that was something that was kind of new to me. I know it sounds bizarre, I tell the truth, but the reality, we lie to ourselves. And we're already dead when we're lying to ourselves, when we're living this life of delusion and we're deceiving ourselves. And so when you start thinking about the fact that you're one breath away from death on any given day, it's going to light a fire under you and these domains of body being a balance in business to be fulfilled. And then you have to focus, well, what are the really important things? Is it the retainer fee? Is it like answering 55 emails in 10 minutes? Is it 8,000 billable hours in a year? I mean, is that really going to get you where you need to be? Is it all just about the money in the legal profession, this legal matrix? Because I'm going to tell you something. If that's all it's about, you're going to be sorely disappointed. Because people lose their jobs every day. Some lawyers lose their law license or they're suspended, because of disciplinary actions. Things happen. People get burned out, fed up, done. I can't tell you the number of colleagues I know that they're just done with the legal profession. They can't do it anymore. They've been in it for so long, they're just fried, burned out. But part of the problem is that they never sat down and thought about, I'm one breath away from death, until they're like, I'm just so burned out, I'm going to have a heart attack, I can't do it. But had they asked this better question 20, 30 years ago and realized how short life really is, it may have dramatically altered their path and their quality of life. And I can tell you, I should have, I thought about that. I mean, when I was in the military, years ago as a young Army officer, I didn't obsess about it. I mean, I thought, well, we could go to war, and you don't know how you're going to function in a war until it actually happens. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. I mean, when people are firing weapons at you and stuff, then you're going to know. And you better pray that you're going to step up to the plate and lead, so that you and the folks that you lead survive and live. And so as my life progressed, it wasn't until really in the last 8 years, I really started even looking at it even more deeply. Even like in the last 90 days, the last 30 days, the last 2 weeks, I've just been really, really passionately digging and thinking and like, am I living my life the way that God wants me to live? Am I fulfilling my soul purpose, or am I just scuffling along in life, pinging off the walls? Because I got to tell you, within the last couple of weeks, it's been a lot, maybe longer than that. I just don't care about the worldly things. I just don't. I just don't care about material things. I don't know. And you may get to that point too. Because if your life is all caught up in new cars and watches and all this other crap and worldly possessions, I'm telling you, they're going to break. They're going to fade. They don't last. And if you tie your happiness to a particular person or persons or a thing, you're going to be sadly disappointed very often. And this is why you really need to just, sit up straight. Take a deep look in the mirror and look at yourself and say, what is my sole purpose? Because on any given day, I'm one breath away from death. One breath from death. Yeah. And I assure you, if you think about that, it's gonna be sobering. It's gonna sober you up real quick. And then you're going to start to assess all these domains. And in particular, you're going to assess the domains of balance and being, the balance, your relationship with your spouse, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your brothers, your sisters, your parents, your cousins, your best friends, all of it. And in being, you're going to refocus whatever your religious beliefs are. Something you need to do. And see, that's the problem that's happened in our world. That's the problem that's happened in the legal profession, i.e. the legal matrix, is that lawyers forgot a long time ago how to really live. They forgot how to live. And you want to know why they forgot how to live? Because they never asked the better question and looked themselves in the mirror and said, you know what? I could be one breath away from death. And how does that make me feel? And what should I do in these domains of body, of being, a balance, and business? In body, should I go work out and start getting fit? In being, should I go back to God? I haven't talked to him. I haven't really thought about him. In balance, maybe their relationship with their spouse or their girlfriend or boyfriend or brother, sister, maybe they got a huge fight and they're decaying from within because they're so filled with hatred and resentment. Or maybe they owe somebody an apology, or they need to go make peace with somebody. Or in business, maybe they're in something they hate and they just weren't honest enough with themselves. They hated what they were doing. And so therefore they stagnated and stayed in a job or a profession that just ate their very soul away. And then therefore they were never fulfilled. If you take a few moments and you really just kind of get selfish for a minute, turn your phones off, turn the TV off, shut down all the social media, and it just a few minutes or an hour or a day or a weekend, and just think about that. If I was one breath away from death, what would I do? If I could change it so that I would have 1 million more breaths to breathe, what would you do? Because I tell you, I asked myself that question, especially this past immediate weekend. And I thought about it on my drive back from the coast, from the beach. I did. And it's sobering. It makes you take this deep, deep dive into who and what you are, or who you are not and what you are not. And again, I promise you, if you do this, you're going to live a whole different way. You're going to think a whole different way. A whole different way. Because, God never promised us an easy life. Never promised it. Jesus never promised anybody an easy life. Not at all. Not at all. Didn't say that. Those weren't the ground rules. Ground rules are, you got to have faith and trust, at least in the Christian religion. And you're going to face obstacles. But you're not going to find peace. You're never going to find peace if you place your value in people or things. But if you just for that moment, just for a little bit of time, just sit by yourself and say, man, I'm one breath away from death. What should I do right now that needs changing in the domains of body, being, a balance, and business? I did. I got to tell you, if you do it, your life is going to change. So I want you to ask that better question. I want you to think about it. One breath away from death. What are you going to do in the domains? What are you going to do? What are you going to change? What are you going to shift? What type of transformation are you going to go through in the domains? I want you to think about it. All right. This is Bryce Dyer. It's been another exciting day, evening, night, day, morning. I don't know, wherever you're at, whatever country, territory, state, wherever you're at. This has been great. It's been great to talk about this. It's very good for being therapeutic. So, again, this is Bryce Dyer coming at you live from Fayetteville, North Carolina, home of Fort Bragg, where everyday men and women don the uniform and do what? They defend the very freedoms that we so often take for granted. This is Bryce out.